Oscar Cluff was the best addition of the transfer portal.
You are Locked On Boilermakers, your daily podcast on the Purdue Boilermakers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into another episode of Locked On Boilermakers here on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host for today. I am Nick Arvin. We're talking everything Boilermakers, and today's episode is brought to you guys by our friends at FanDuel. Football season is just around the corner. Visit FanDuel, the app today, and start planning your future bets now. Thank you everyone for making Locked On Boilermakers your first listen today. We have a big episode for you guys today. There's a lot of excitement surrounding basketball season because it's just a month away, and I'm so very excited. I have a big episode coming your way, and I want to talk the transfer portal and someone that Purdue brought in the transfer portal, that being Oscar Cluff, and why I believe that of every team in the nation, Oscar Cluff was the best transfer portal addition. We got that, and then we're going to talk this Purdue-Kentucky exhibition matchup that's happening next month in October. Super excited about that one. And then we're going to finish up the episode talking a bit of preview against Purdue football's next week matchup in Southern Illinois. That one's going to be a big one. Night game at Ross-Ade. Hopefully that one is sold out. A lot to be excited about, but let's go ahead and get right into something that Purdue basketball fans need to be excited about, and that's our guy, Oscar Cluff. And there's a reason for people to be excited, because when you talk about the transfer portal, right now in college basketball, it's absolutely insane. We're in an unprecedented time in college sports in general because NIL is running rampant. There's no real regulations over it at the moment. The transfer portal is running rapid. There's no real regulations surrounding that. And in terms of college basketball right now, we've even seen teams gone away from the traditional recruiting high school kids. And honestly, for Matt Painter and Purdue, we still see that a little bit, but not as much as we traditionally have. Matt Painter has only brought in two guys via the high school route, and Omir Meyer, who is one of those two guys. I wouldn't necessarily classify him as a high school guy because he comes from overseas, but when you talk about 18-year-olds, you bring in Meyer, you bring in West. So we've seen a bit of a different route in the past couple of years for Matt Painter, and that's just kind of the route that college basketball in general is going. But Matt Painter and the Purdue Boilermakers made a splash in the transfer portal this year, and he may not be the highest rated transfer. He's in the 30s, according to 24/7 Sports transfer portal rankings. But when you talk about the impact that this guy is going to have on a team, the impact that this guy is going to have on a team with national championship aspirations, it makes Oscar Cluff the best and most important transfer portal addition of the offseason. I'm not just talking for Purdue. I'm talking for the entire landscape of college basketball, because here's exactly what Purdue needed. When you talk about that team last year, it was solid. Make it to a Sweet 16. You just barely get beat out by that Houston team. Very well coaching Kelvin Sampson. They'll be right back into that spot next year. They're going to be super good, but Purdue is going to be a better team because they addressed the need that they had. The one area last year that Purdue was kind of lacking in was front court depth. They struggled rebounding the ball, and that's kind of what bit Purdue at the end of the year. They weren't able to get boards, and that margin, we saw that going into March. That margin was too much to overcome for Purdue. When you're not able to rebound the ball, you're not going to have as many possessions to be able to score with guys like Braden Smith, guys like Fletcher Lawyer, guys like TKR, and you bring in the best rebounder in the portal in Oscar Cluff, who comes over from South Dakota State University, and you fill that hole instantly. Oscar Cluff is so good. He's a top rebounder, and that's exactly what you need for Purdue this year. You return so much production, whether that be Braden Smith, who's looking to kind of break that assist record this year. You bring in Fletcher Lawyer, who is so good offensively, and a guy like TKR, who, that's kind of my point. That's the biggest thing that Oscar Cluff provides, is the ability to slide TKR over to the 4 spot this year, somewhere that he's more comfortable with, and let him cook. Last year, we saw that Trey Kaufman reign honestly had to guard some of these big centers in the Big Ten because there wasn't a whole ton of front court depth because Daniel Jacobson gets hurt early in the year, 7'4" type of guy, and you don't have that luxury to fill in that depth at the front court. So Trey Kaufman-Rain had to play a bigger role last year than what some people wanted him to do, and he succeeded in that role. He scored 20 points, but back to my point of Oscar Cluff is so important for this team this year because when you have national championship aspirations, you got to have a center that's going to be able to compete. And we bring in a guy who not only is going to be able to compete this year for Purdue, but he's going to be a great center in terms of Big Ten play. He's the perfect guy for this Purdue team. He fits this team perfectly, and that's why he's such a great addition. He may not be the highest rated guy in the transfer portal, but he's going to make the highest impact this year for Purdue. So when you think about where Purdue was last year, what their expectations are this year, last year, the expectation wasn't necessarily national championship like it is this year. Obviously, that would have been great, but it wouldn't be expected because you lose Zach Edey to the NBA last year. You know that that center spot is not going to be as talented as it has been in the past because you have a National Player of the Year guy in Zach Edey that leaves. And then this year, you fill that hole right back up. I'm not saying that Oscar Cluff is going to be a National Player of the Year contender the way that Zach Edey was, but he's going to do everything right for you. When we talk about what we've seen so far in summer, going into fall, we've seen a guy that not only is able to rebound the ball, not only is a guy that's able to get it done in the interior, both as a defender, but also on the offensive side of the ball. We've seen him get inside and really be able to score the ball more than some people even expected when you bring a guy like that into West Lafayette. But this guy is huge. You can't even tell because he is 6'11", but he's a built 6'11". That dude is absolutely huge. And when you think about what his point guard, a guy in Braden Smith, what he wants to do, you open up that pick and roll so well with a guy like Oscar Cluff because nobody is going to be able to get past his screens. When Oscar Cluff sets a pick on you, you're not getting around that. And that opens up the ability for Braden Smith to get downhill, get to the rim, and then collapse that defense where he's able to pass the ball out or take it to the hoop and score. And that's something that Oscar Cluff provides for you this year that you didn't necessarily have last year. And when you think about how good that team was last year, you think about another year to develop for the big three and TKR, Fletcher Loyer, and Braden Smith, and then bringing in a star center in Oscar Cluff from South Dakota State. This is a team that is the favorite for the national championship for a reason. And I think that Oscar Cluff is the reason for that. He brings a team that was already great, a team that already had national championship aspirations, and you bring that team over the top. That's how good Oscar Cluff is. That's how well he fits in Purdue's system. Because when you think about transfer portal rankings, and even when it comes to recruits, a lot of it comes down to star rankings. That's what people think of. You think of the 5-star guys. You think of the guys that are 1 through 10 on the transfer portal rankings. And while Oscar Cluff isn't that guy, he fits Purdue's system better than any of those other guys are going to fit any other system because he's the missing link for Purdue. When you think about college basketball, you're only as good as your, worst link, your weakest link. And Oscar Cluff fills that role. He creates the most complete team in the nation this year for Purdue, and he gives the Boilermakers exactly what they need. And not just Oscar Cluff alone, because he's not going to be the only guy in that front court that's able to produce this year. He'll be the starting center. He's proven himself that he deserves that starting center role. He's been such a good rebounder, so good. We talked about the picking, being able to really operate with Braden Smith in that pick and roll, but also as a playmaker, being able to pass the ball, being able to, from the center position, when you have a guy that's able to pass the ball alongside an amazing point guard, that opens up so much. You're able to get that offense flowing, and that's something that isn't really talked about a whole lot with a guy like Oscar Cluff. But even when you consider the fact you're able to move Trey Kaufman-Rain to the 4 spot where you'll almost certainly get more production out of the guy who already scored 20 points a game last year, but you get Daniel Jacobson healthy again this year. What Oscar Cluff has in rebounding, he may be lacking a little bit as a rim protector. He's not the best rim protector you'll see, but he doesn't need to be that guy because Daniel Jacobson's going to provide that for Purdue this year. You're able to swap those two guys out, and you have that depth in the front court. You build what we already know is going to be the best backcourt in the nation, and then you have a top 5 front court in the nation now with Oscar Cluff, TKR, and Daniel Jacobson. Daniel Jacobson is an amazing rim protector. He's 7'4". Nobody's scoring the ball over him. So you have one of the best rim protectors in the nation, and you have one of the best rebounders in the nation. Those are two guys that complement each other so well. And that's why I say Oscar Cluff is the most important, the biggest transfer addition of this offseason. What he brings to Purdue, where he elevates this team. National championship aspirations. Oscar Cluff is the guy. He was the missing piece last year. You bring him in, and he is the perfect guy. Last year, we saw Daniel Jacobson get hurt, and that was out of Purdue's control. You can't control a freak injury like that. So obviously, we say this from the offseason. In a perfect world, you have all these guys available throughout the long season that is the college basketball season. You may not have all those guys all the time, but from an August standpoint, just a month away from the college basketball season, this is looking like the most complete roster in the nation, and Oscar Cluff is the reason for that. We'll talk about this Purdue-Kentucky exhibition match that is getting me so excited. I don't think I've ever been as excited for an exhibition match in my life. I'm excited for that one. We'll talk that one here next. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Do you need parts fast for a project? Well, Supply House has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer. If you join the Trademaster program today, you can get in for free and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. Today's episode is also brought to you by Rugiet. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Ready. Rugiet Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rugiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average in just 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. If traditional options haven't worked for you, Rugiet might be the answer, because over 150,000 men have already made that switch. And you can too if you just head over to rugiet.com/lockedoncollege and use code lockedoncollege to get 15% off today. That's rugiet.com/lockedoncollege and use promo code lockedoncollege for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safetyness, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rugiet website for full safety information. We're just 52 days away from Purdue's opening exhibition against Kentucky in Rupp Arena. And before we get into that one that's getting everybody excited, including myself, I want to tell you guys about a special opportunity that Locked On is offering for our listeners. So we have an important request. Locked On wants to hear from you guys. We put together a survey to learn a little bit more about our listeners and make your favorite podcast even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like and even what you don't, and answer the questions about our advertising. So go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. And then everyone who completes the survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. And that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. And then you can also find that link in my show notes. A great opportunity if you want a chance to win that that $100 Amazon gift card. We're giving out 10, and just make your voice heard. Tell us what you like, what you don't like, and we always appreciate that feedback. But something that I'm so excited about, not just our Locked On survey, but this huge exhibition that's coming up next month in October, October 24th, and we're just 52 days out. Boiler Ball is coming up quick. We're almost there. I can feel it in my bones. We got football season going on right now, but nothing gets me excited as some Purdue basketball. And for that exhibition, I have never in my life been as excited for an exhibition matchup as I am for this one against Kentucky. This is one that we as Purdue fans have been asking for a hot minute. Mark Pope comes over to Kentucky, and him and Matt Painter get it done, get it on the schedule. That's that huge exhibition matchup. And let's talk about it, because even though it's not going to count, wins or losses, honestly, to me, it doesn't really matter, because we're going to get what could be a Final Four matchup previewed in October. And that's something that is so rare in the modern era of college basketball. Everybody knows how good Purdue's going to be this year. Everybody knows about Braden Smith. They know about TKR. They know that this team has national championship aspirations. But if you go a little bit south down to Lexington, Kentucky, that's another team that has national championship aspirations. These two programs are in very different spots. We saw Mark Pope last year in his first year as Kentucky's head coach kind of do some things different. They didn't necessarily have the success that they necessarily wanted. Obviously, there were high expectations for that team, but in the first year of Mark Pope's tenure, not going to find that Final Four. That's just kind of the nature of what college sports are. You need that transition year. But Otega Owe in that backcourt for Purdue, that's going to be the matchup to look out for. I don't know who's going to be on Owe necessarily all the time, but we saw that Owe was the best player for Kentucky last year under Mark Pope. We saw that he really plugged in and found a lot of success. He comes back when he could have gone to the NBA, but he wants to play for Mark Pope again. He wants to find the success that he found last year, and I think that'll be a key matchup to look out for. I think that Purdue's backcourt needs to find success scoring the ball. That's what I want to see. I want to see them score the ball against what's going to be a solid defensive team this year for Kentucky. They bring in a decent amount of guys that are able to really defend the perimeter, be great point of attack defenders. And I want to see Braden Smith kind of collapse that defense like we know that he's capable of doing. And then Fletcher Lawyer, I want to see him bang down threes, make his shots, and just provide the offense that we're expecting to see, not just in this exhibition game, but going on into the year for Purdue. This is going to be a big test early on, exhibition. Not too much pressure, but a lot of expectations for both of these teams this year. And it's going to be fun to see them clash early on. And I think that although we're not going to know early on, that's the thing about college basketball, is a team that gets brought out in October, a team that gets brought out in the early weeks of November is going to be a completely different team than what we see in February going into March Madness. But it's a good kind of threshold to see where these teams are going into fall, going into the season, and to see what to expect from both of these teams. And I expect these teams to both give it their all. I don't think that either of these teams are going to treat it like an exhibition, like this game doesn't matter, because there's pride on the table. These are two of the biggest brands in college basketball. These are two of the die-hard fan bases in college basketball. And these are two of the teams that get competitive guys. And look at Purdue's roster. Do you think Braden Smith is going to take an exhibition game lightly? No, that dude is a killer. He's going to treat this game like it's the national championship, because that's how it should be treated against a team like Kentucky. I can't stress enough how excited I am that college basketball is just a month away. It's so exciting. Kentucky, Purdue, and then Purdue starts out their season against Evansville. That'll be a good one. Purdue should have a decent amount of success. We see that out-of-conference schedule is kind of tricky. They may face Texas Tech, kind of depending on how that tournament plays out. They'll face off against Auburn. They'll face off against Alabama. Those are tough out-of-conference games. And when you have the opportunity to kind of be in iron sharpens iron environment in that week one, or that not the week one, but the first exhibition of the year, that's a great opportunity for both of these programs. Kentucky is looking to really improve this year. Purdue is looking to make it to a national championship this year. And we're going to see all of that in that first exhibition of the year. I'm sure we'll be talking that one a lot more down the road. That one's going to have a lot of stakes, even for an exhibition. That may be the biggest exhibition game ever played in college basketball. And of course, it's going to be in Rupp Arena, October 24th. Mark your calendars. We're 52 days away from college basketball. Purdue basketball is back, but I want to talk about football in this next segment and Purdue's week 2 opponent. We saw Purdue football really stunned. They played so well against Ball State. Will they be able to maintain that momentum against Southern Illinois next week at night at Ross-Ade? We'll talk that one here next. FanDuel customers, the NFL season is almost here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. You can do anything with FanDuel, whether that's props, whether that's parlaying. You want Purdue to win the national championship this year? That futures bet is open now. They're the favorites. Get in on that one. So are you ready to play? If you are, you can download the FanDuel app right now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends at Game Time. College football is back, and I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel more like a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at the checkout. You don't have to deal with any of that. And that's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices. With no surprise fees, what you see is what you pay. Want to make it out to Southern Illinois this weekend at night? You can do that. Want to make it out to Mackey this winter? You can do that too with Game Time. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. If you download the Game Time app today, create an account and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchases. Of course, terms apply. But again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. This last week, Saturday, we saw Purdue put up a dominant performance in a 31-0 victory against Ball State. But will they be able to maintain that momentum going into the night game, 6 o'clock this weekend against the Southern Illinois Salukis? Well, let's talk about that. What did Southern Illinois do this Saturday? Well, we saw what Purdue did, and that's what I want to talk about first. Ryan Brown was so good Saturday against Ball State. He performed better than I think anybody could have possibly expected him to perform, throwing for over 300 yards, the only quarterback in the Big Ten to do so. And not just that, he was able to get it done on his feet. He was able to improvise, and he was able to lead Purdue to success. But Southern Illinois has a quarterback for themselves. And that's going to be something that really tests Purdue this weekend, because we saw against Ball State, their quarterback, Khalil Kelly, didn't really want to throw the ball a whole lot. He wanted to focus on the running game. That's what Mike Yurmavich in their first year at Ball State, that's kind of the identity that they've wanted to build, is making that quarterback run, creating an opportunity where you have an extra blocker and find success. We saw the linebackers for the Boilermakers were able to kind of limit that, whether that be Manny Powell, Sanders Ellis. They did a great job against Ball State. But for Southern Illinois, it's going to be a little bit of a different strategy to success, because they have a guy in DJ Williams who threw for 227 yards in that game in a 49-3 victory, albeit that was over the Thomas More College. So don't know about that level of competition. But for the Salukis, they dominated that one, 49-3. DJ Williams has a great game for the Salukis, and we talked about it yesterday on the show. The DBs are going to need to be tested eventually. Going into a game against USC in week 3, Jaden Mayava has proven that he's going to be able to throw the ball. He's going to be able to stretch that field out. So I want to see Purdue's defensive backs be tested. And I think that we're going to see that Saturday against Southern Illinois, because DJ Williams, he had a big game, and Southern Illinois has proven that's kind of what they want to do. They want to throw the ball. They want to have an explosive offense, and they think that they can find success in that. And that's something that we saw them have success in week 1 against Purdue. That'll be a little bit more difficult, but here's what I want to see. I want to see Purdue's defense shut that team down. I want to see those DBs be in stride with the receivers. I want to see DJ Williams not being able to get anything done. I want him to have to wait. I want him to read through his progressions and create more opportunity for that Purdue pass rush to kind of get home and get to Williams. Because if you're able to make Williams have a lot of pressure, that's what limits him. If you're able to get your guys into the backfield, make his life difficult, he's not going to be able to throw the ball at the success that he's able to do. And the Purdue pass rush is going to be better than the Southern Illinois offensive line. That's just what it is. That's just the talent gap between the Big Ten and the FCS conference. Albeit Southern Illinois is in a gauntlet in the Missouri Valley Conference, the toughest conference in FCS football. But like I said, it is FCS, and the Big Ten team should have more success in their pass rush. They should be able to make life difficult for DJ Williams. And then when they're not able to get home, I want to see those DBs being able to play great, whether that's in man, whether that's in zone, whatever defense is ran. I want to see lockdown defense, because if you can't do it against Southern Illinois, you're not going to be able to do it against a team like USC week 3. But I think that Purdue's defense is going to be able to lock down against Southern Illinois. I think that they're going to be able to prevent DJ Williams from getting anything in the air. And I think that Purdue's going to have a lot of success week 2. We saw week 1, that defense was really solid. Ball State was able to get some stuff throughout that game, but 2 missed field goals leads to a Purdue shutout. And that's about all that you could possibly ask for. I'm not trying to nitpick that performance at all, but I do want to see those DBs get tested this week. And then on the offensive side of the ball, just do what you were doing last week. I do want to see Devin Mockbee get more touches. That's something that we didn't see. Purdue kind of found a mismatch. They noticed that in the play action, Ryan Brown was able to get whatever he wanted. And we saw that opening up to Armand Branch on that first drive of the game. He stretches that field out for that big touchdown throw to Branch. But that's not going to always be open against teams. And I want to see Devin Mockbee really cement himself as that leading running back for this team. I want to see him get the ball and get it early, and then open that play action up a little bit later. Once that defense is starting to jump, once those safeties are starting to bite on Mockbee, then stretch the field. I loved what Ryan Brown was able to do week 1, and this is nothing against Ryan Brown. He's proven himself as the starter for this team. He's proven himself as one of the better quarterbacks in the Big Ten. But we know that Devin Mockbee is also one of the best running backs in the Big Ten. And you can't stop Ryan Brown. You can't stop Devin Mockbee. And you sure as heck can't stop both. Devin Mockbee didn't have a bad game in week 1 by any means. He had over 100 all-purpose yards against Ball State. But I want to see him getting it done on the ground. I want to see them get that open early. I want to see him get 3 to 4 touches on that opening drive, if not more, and then open up that passing game a little bit later. Obviously, if it's not working for Devin Mockbee, if that defense is doing a great job stopping Devin Mockbee, then you make adjustments. But you run it with Mock until it doesn't work. We need to see that. We need to see it eventually, because that's going to be the success that Purdue finds this year. And if week 1 was any indication of where Purdue is going to be this year, I think it was a good indication, because now we know that Purdue has a pristine quarterback and a pristine running back. Armand Branch and the Brown connection, absolute fireworks. And I think that Purdue is going to be a lot better than a lot of people expect this year. I don't want to overreact to a week 1 performance, but what I saw is that they have the pieces, and that offensive line is really competent this year. This is one of the best offensive lines that we've seen since at least the Jeff Brom era, but those guys are really big. Whenever Braden Joyner went out of that game, the offensive line really struggled a little bit. But if Braden Joyner is able to stay on the field at that starting center spot, if that offensive line is able to be what they were for most of the game against Ball State, this Purdue team is going to be competitive, and they're going to be competitive. They're going to win against Southern Illinois. That's going to be one to watch. I hope that Ross-Ade is packed. I hope that one is electric, just like it was this past Saturday. And I think that Purdue is going to get a big win against Southern Illinois. We'll talk this game, get a little bit more specific with certain matchups. A little bit later in the week, we're going to have some basketball coming your way. Throughout this week, I'm super excited to talk that, because we are just a month away. It's starting to get exciting. Like I got my boy Purdue Pete on the shirt today. I'm so excited for basketball season. It's almost here. We got Southern Illinois, Purdue week 2 matchup, big week of content coming on Locked On Boilermakers. So I appreciate you guys making Locked On Boilermakers your first listen once again today, this beautiful Tuesday. If you are watching this on Tuesday, Thank you guys once again for making Locked On Boilermakers your first listen today. And it's another big moment on Locked On. College football fans, Locked On and Fire TV present College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation along two-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Hawley, and Locked On's local experts. A college football preview only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. Thank you guys for joining me. And as always, boiler up, hammer down.